Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 26th to Thursday the 29th of September 2022. Hello everyone, I hope you are well. I trust that you are. What an eventful week it's been, politically but also on the square. But we're only going to be able to talk about any of these stories this week with one other person, and that is Rob. Hello Rob, how are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm very well, thank you very much. I'm very excited. I'm going on holiday next week. Yes, I am off to Amsterdam next week. So, just for you to be aware, Rob fans, all three of you, all right? I'm not here next week.
Dimple.
And my one solitary dimple. Thanks for everyone. I've got at least three. I'm here to tell you that. But
where's the third? Don't show me. Don't show me.
Call yourself a gay man, Alex. Honestly. So I'm not here next week. Ben will be taking over for next week. He will be here. You can see the lovely couple do their thing. It'll be lovely. There'll be no split screen. They'll be in the same room
with a cat.
With a cat, it'll be lovely. So you can enjoy that, Ben fans. He will be back next week for 1 week only, because mind you, unless that Amsterdam does its thing, and I'm found 3 weeks later up in Belgium or something. I've heard.
I have to say, I'm a bit concerned by you, because this is your first time in Amsterdam, and I mean, having been to Amsterdam myself a few times. Oh, good. Obvious. So you're going to be somewhat cultured, but
yeah, I'm going to go to a museum and take in all the Amsterdamian culture, nothing else.
Right. What kind of? I don't think you're going to get all the culture from a museum, though, are you, Rob? Let's be honest.
When in Rome.
Right. But no, I hope you have a really good time in Amsterdam. I'm sure everyone wants to comment below and let you know how much fun. In fact, let Rob know.
Give me some tips. Give me some Amsterdam tips.
Give him damn tips, because I've given him all my knowledge,
all that sort of thing.
Maybe not, but I've passed on my knowledge to Rob for what he needs to know, and I'm sure there's many gaps.
I'm shocked by the things that Alex told me.
I mean, this was a few years back. This is before I even met Ben. So what? At least 12 years ago since the last time I went to Amsterdam. So yeah, it's been a long time, and I'm sure a lot of things have changed over there along the dam. But,
we brought decimal currency in, all that sort of thing.
That's it. So have a great time, Rob.
Thank you.
Have a lot of fun. Just to remind people that if you are watching this, you can watch us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us and ring the bell. Or if you're listening, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And the same applies. Don't forget to follow us. And you can find us on Twitter at Walford Weekly, and Instagram, and our TikTok, which is the same tag. And if you ever want to get in touch with us, if you want to get in touch with me, it's alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. Or if you want to get in touch with Rob, it's robwalfordweekly@gmail.com. All the details will be repeated at the end of the show. So, Rob, here we go. Let's do another week. It was a big one, and let's talk about this week on Walford.
Let's do it.
So we are starting the week with Janine's story because she's been found out by her own daughter, Scarlet. And Scarlet was willing to leak this information to Linda before Janine had got cottoned on and ran over to quickly stop her daughter from dobbing her in. But luckily she's hidden the photo in a very, very well hidden place, which is the DVD case of Die Hard, which we can all agree.
Christmas movie. We're getting a lovely big old Christmas Day reveal, and Mick Carter is the type of person who would totally watch Die Hard 100% if he could. I mean, to be fair, Mick's been a bit busy over the past few Christmases, having emotional turmoil and finding out his wife's been raped and all that kind of thing. He's not had a Christmas where he could just sit and watch Die Hard on Christmas Day whilst Janine makes a turkey. He's not had that, and trust me, he ain't getting that this year either.
I know not even pop the DVD into the DVD player before he'll see that photo. But I mean, a lot of people have rightfully said that picture was put on the pinboard the whole time, so it was the evidence was in plain sight there. But I mean, I think it's going to be more the way the reaction of it being found will be how Janine and Scarlet and how it's played over Christmas.
I am looking forward to it. It's going to be. I am feeling just the way that it's all been built up. It's going to be a big old climax, which is going to be great. Which means it's going to be quite an exciting Christmas Day. I mean, clearly Janine can't trust Scarlet as far as she can throw a grand piano, because this girl has been wanting to has been suspicious of her mum. For quite a while. I mean, this isn't the first time that Scarlet sort of just worked everything out, because she did it a few weeks back, didn't she? Where she Janine had a cut on her head. You started the car crash, didn't you? It's all your fault. It's all your fault, Mum. So she's far too clever for her own good, is Scarlet. So I mean, she's at the moment. Mick, Scarlet, and Janine have now gone off to see all the kids.
Yes.
Gone to meet Lee, gone to meet
Carter
Johnny,
tour.
and gone to see Nancy as well, I think, which is going to be a lovely reunion because Nancy and Janine were great friends when they last met each other. So that's going to go well, I'm sure.
Were you interested also that they the picture of Johnny was original Johnny?
Well, it's not the first time either. I mean, obviously that's the first time it's been properly kind of pointed out. That's Johnny. But because obviously when Linda New Year's Day, I think it was, Nancy did some sort of slideshow or something, and Sam Strike was in those pictures, wasn't he? So
yes,
New Year's Day,
the one with Lady Di when they're all laying on the floor with the white background.
New Year's Day, 2022, the sacking of Ted Riley. But that's very exciting, which makes me wonder if we are going to see Johnny briefly through Mick's exit. I think we might do.
Well, I was wondering if we're going to see Johnny and perhaps Lee more permanently, and that would be something that keeps Linda on the show, because obviously we've been talking about how Linda can stay. It seems inevitable that Linda will leave, knowing that we know that Mick is leaving because Danny Dyer's ceased to contract, so he's not carrying on. We'll talk about someone else's contract that they've stopped as well, and I want to gossip at the end of the show. That's obviously Charlie, Brookes and Janine.
Bunny. I am not a happy bunny. We'll talk about it later at the end, but needless to say, me and Charlie Brooks ain't speaking at the moment. All right, I am not amused. How dare
so
she have a career?
I know, how dare she do something outside of the square, but do you think this could be then an in? Because it was, like you say, it was very prominently pointed out that, just to almost remind anyone who may not remembered the Carters when they were first introduced, this is Johnny, this is a character, this is Lee, this is a character. And so it's kind of anyone just starting to watch EastEnders, it's kind of introducing them to perhaps then bringing them in for Linda.
Maybe. I don't think Sam Strike would want to come back full time, if I'm honest. I think Lee, I can see that happening. And that's nothing against Danny Boy Hatchet, but I think that Sam Strike, seeing as though he left after about 5 minutes of being Johnny, I don't think he's going to have any kind of interest in coming back full time. He might come back for sort of mixed exit, which I think would feel nice. They could just tie a ribbon over the whole sort of era of the Carters. But Lee coming back full time, I would like. And then, like you say, it gives Linda something to do, because now Janine's leaving as well. So that rivalry isn't going to kind of continue after Mick's gone either. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. So how do you think now? Sort of all the pieces are in place, really. How do you think this is all going to play out from here on in? Because Scarlet knows everything now. I think we're supposed to take from the fact that she's stared at a photo in horror for about half an hour that she knows everything that's kind of gone on. So how is it all going to be revealed?
I mean, she clearly is upset having to betray her mum. She was just at the cusp.
I think she could give a toss about betraying.
But how do you think Janine's stopping her then? Because like Janine kind of came over to Linda's house, threatened Linda. But so do you think it's because Janine was there, she kind of stopped herself? Or do you think Scarlet has got a little bit of fear for her mum, like what her mum could do to her as well?
Not necessarily. I don't think Janine's made the connection of that was why, because I think she was blaming Linda for it more than anything. I think she was trying to. I think what her thought process.
She was trying to manipulate Scarlet.
She was trying to kind of drip poison in her ear about her, which is completely Janine's way of looking at anything, because it couldn't be anything that she's done, God forbid. I think that was more what it was. Obviously, Scarlet is now. I don't know what Scarlet was even planning on doing. It's not like, was she planning on saying, "Well, my mum's caused this"? Because obviously, we still got the fact that Linda doesn't have no memory of what went on in the car crash. So something is going to clearly trigger her memory to remember everything that happened. So, and I don't know if the photo would be enough to do that. Would it? I don't know.
I mean, all the pieces are there. I guess that could be just the first. The pacing for her to then find out the rest of the information, because Sharon's obviously letting on. She still hasn't really given all the information herself away, I don't think, yet either. Like she still suspects that and thinks that Janine took that phone call, even though Janine's kind of. Well,
Sharon still. There was something else that Sharon was keeping from Linda as well, wasn't there?
That's right, because Janine was threatening her by saying, if you reveal this, then I'll tell Phil or something else. Something
like that, yeah. So Sharon was keeping something, and then Sharon said that, fine, I'll keep that quiet for reasons. So I can't remember what that was, but either way, there are plenty of secrets kind of floating about that all kind of pivot back to this photo that they've all had a perfect chance of looking at ever since it's been put on the Vic wall. But this will be the moment, and it sounds like I'm talking down on it. I'm not. I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait for this all to kind of play out. We also have the fact that obviously Janine's pregnant now. Well, now we know.
You said. You said last week that you don't think she is pregnant, and there was that scene when she was in the bathroom and she was faking being sick.
Yeah. So why was she doing that?
Well, was she doing it for sympathy for Mick? So Mick kind of, because then later in that scene, Mick said, "Oh, I'm thinking I might go and visit Linda to see how she's." He's like, "Oh, but I don't feel very well. What about me?" And so then Mick kind of. So was she just kind of playing up on it, but is pregnant, or is she genuinely not pregnant?
Exactly. I mean, it's Janine, isn't it? So you can guarantee that 9 times out of 10 there's something dishonest going on. The fact that Charlie Brookes is leaving suggests that she's not pregnant, I would think, unless she's going to do a Ruby. In terms of when she leaves, we will find out, oh, actually, she is still pregnant, and Janine then goes off with a Carter baby, hopefully one day to return with said Carter baby. But that would also depend on whether Mick is alive at the end of this story or not. We don't know. So there's a lot of things still in the air that we're not going to know the answer to until transmission. So remains to be seen. Do let us know in the comment section below where you think this is going, what madness will occur in the run-up to Christmas and on Christmas Day itself. Let us know in the comment section or by following any of our social media outlets.
So it's the big story of the week then, and we're starting off with the reveal, I suppose. Suki was walking out in the street in the middle of the night. Eve found her. They took her to Dr. Nina. Dr. Nina gave her some therapy, a few sleeping pills. And then the proverbial hit the fan, because we found out that Dr. Nina and Ravi have been plotting together over the death of Ranveer. Makes some sense now, perhaps why Dr. Nina doesn't give a damn.
Honestly, Alex.
In plain sight,
you're a moron.
This.
I'm a moron. We are both morons. All right. It was so obvious, and yet it missed us by completely, which is the best sort of twist, isn't it? Yeah. When it's so obvious. And yet neither of us landed on it whatsoever. We just thought that it was just Nina being a badly written character, and yet it makes perfect sense because Nina is perfect. Well, I say she's perfectly delighted with it. She didn't actually. She the way she spoke to Ravi made it sound as though that wasn't part of the plan originally. Because then you went and killed him, as though that wasn't actually part of the plan. Presumably, Ranveer was supposed to die at some point, but just not yet.
Yeah, it's a bit too soon for his death. They had a few months down the line to sponge off some more money off him. But yeah, so that was an interesting twist. And then there was a further twist later on. But before we get to that twist, we should first of all talk about the relationship between Suki and Eve, because that got built upon this week as well. And I really, really liked it. I really did.
Suki wandering through the square, ethereally dressed in white. This woman in white, her Lady Macbeth moment.
Canterbury Tales, I thought.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. Chaucer, why not? It was great. Eve and Suki are like developing more. Eve is getting a little bit close. I think she's going to be in danger soon, isn't she? Because Ravi is starting to find Eve a little bit in the way at this moment. And I don't think Eve trusts Ravi whatsoever. So I think those two are going to develop a little bit of a feud as the weeks go on. Because Eve, I think, is more suspicious of Ravi than Suki is, and maybe she might start to say to Suki, "Ravi, what's a curling? What's a curling there, Suki?" But it's exciting. I love it. Nina and Ravi. Go on. Sorry.
So I was going to just quickly ask, on your comment, how far do you think Ravi will go with stopping Eve getting closer to Suki? Because is this? I'm not saying this wishing it. Is this?
No.
Serial killer route we're taking?
I hope not. I mean, the thing is, it seems unlikely that Ravi will never ever kill again, just because he killed so quickly. What was it, week 2, I think, or something, where he just, I mean, yes, the lead up to it wasn't like a cold-blooded murder in the sense of like he planned it and he was, meant to die that night, and he came in with a clock rather than, it also, the way it all played out kind of just fell into place. But as they always say in soap, it gets easier the more you do it. So give it a year and he might just happily kill someone on the way to the corner shop because it's just as easy. You don't know.
I found it interesting that they kind of introduced Nina into the story as well, because I thought that was almost like an escape route for them to then kind of have Ravi stay if Nina was to go, if you know what I mean. Because some of the blame could then be rested onto Nina's shoulders rather than just Ravi's. Well,
those two are together. And by together, they are very together. They are fused together.
Aren't they just?
And they had sex. We found out that Nina was in on it. And they had sex on the desk in Nina's office. There was patients waiting outside. That door's got a window on it.
Can you imagine if they panned the camera and you just saw the receptionist looking through the window, just like a Jurassic Park with the dinosaur with the steam?
Honestly, shocking behaviour, and so they're both like a bit of danger. There's nothing better than just we might be found out. How exciting! So yeah, that's occurring. So I mean, it sort of suggests that Nina's much as a nutter as Ravi is in a lot of ways. Because it's that
doctors on EastEnders. They're all nutters.
I know. Bad as Yusuf. It's. And it's sort of suggested because if you look at that moment psychologically, you will, people who are psychopaths don't tend to worry about, danger and being found out and all that kind of thing. So the fact that they were quite happily having sex on the table when anyone could have walked in or seen them through the window in the door suggests that she's got a screw loose as well. Mm-hmm. And now we know that Nina is a bit of a bad one. It was sort of obvious as the week went on that she's just sort of quite happily waiting and enjoying the game as much as Ravi is. So it's going to be very interesting to watch those two going forward. I suspect that Suki is in danger with Nina handing out sleeping tablets.
I thought that too, the drugs, because she doesn't know what drugs she's being taken. And I think it's going to be Ash who's going to see maybe a script. So I feel like
a script. Oh my God, have you seen what happens at the Duff Duff this week?
It's like prescription. Being a doctor myself, I abbreviate.
Alex,
yeah, MD. Mass
different drug.
So I think that her extended that Suki's family are bit by bit kind of putting the pieces together. So Kheerat's putting pieces together. I think Ash will put pieces together. I think Vinny might have a hard time putting pieces together. Yeah,
Vinny won't.
Vinny will just kind of unscrew a mobile phone and just stand there.
Nugget will work out before Vinny does.
I reckon Nugget's got smarts. He's all right.
Can I gush about Nugget at this moment, please?
Yeah,
because I know you're not.
This week.
I'm sorry to say it if anybody is not a fan, but I think it's official. I'm a Nugget stan. I love Nugget. I like a Nugget, and I love Nugget. I'm telling you, it's his name. Well, that is his name, Dalvinder. But it's what is it with you and nicknames? You got in a strop when Rocky first arrived and got all sanctimonious about not liking Rocky, and now it just rolls off your tongue. So it's this thing.
I'll be honest, it's been indented in my mind because I've said it so many times now. But Nuggets, it's such a cutting name, Nugget.
Little nugget of gold. That's what he is. My little nug.
Yeah, we did have a lovely sweet scene though when he's crying over his grandfather because he normally keeps in touch with him. He's obviously got this very close relationship with his grandfather. He's expecting a phone call from him on his birthday. He got a so that was an interesting dynamic as well because obviously that's something where Ravi hasn't been in his son's life very much. He didn't realise that there was that closeness between him and Ranveer.
Well, the interesting thing here is I didn't realise until this week that Ravi being in prison was such a secret. I kind of thought that everyone...
I thought it was common knowledge.
I thought it was common knowledge, and yet nobody knows. Suki doesn't know that he was in prison. Ravi doesn't. Nugget doesn't know that he was in prison. So those are sort of the important people that should know. Kheerat obviously doesn't know. So Phil, at the moment, is the only person that really knows that Ravi was in prison. So I wonder if Phil's going to, at some point, because Phil likes revealing things, it turns out, this week.
This is what I was thinking. And then there was a time when that would have been a blackmail situation with...
Yeah.
But they've kind of... We'll talk about Phil in the end of...
Later.
During the show, sorry, later. But they have softened Phil. So I suppose he's not really having any kind of intervention with the Panesars at the moment. The Panesars are being really self-contained. But I love that they're actually... They're expanding the Panesars. It's so good. Like even Nina, I consider now as part of the Panesar.
Yeah, plot. Absolutely.
I'll get there. Nina,
and the thing is with the thing is with Nugget as well. He is, I think, because we've now got these three new kids. You've got Amy, new actress, new character. Let's be fair here. Denzel, and they've got their own story. And now Nugget. For me, Nugget is the most interesting out of the three, and that's not downplaying Denzel and Amy, but Nugget has. Well, he's got himself into a family that is more interesting at the moment because the Panesars are sort of the big family on the square at the moment, which I'm so happy to be able to say because they always had that potential, Alex, and we were never given it, and now we are in the Panesar.
Just need to be put in the right hands. That we knew they were good characters. We knew they were good characters. We knew they had a lot of potential, but they just needed to be put into the more nurturing hands. And again, I know I moan about it all the time, but I feel like these current hands are the ones that seem to be working out quite nicely.
Well, I've worked out that John Sen's bricks were good, but his cement was crap. That's my analogy of it. You know, he was very good at supplying building materials, but he was not a builder himself in that sense. You know, that's my knowledge of it.
Fair enough. Good analogy.
But anyway, but Nugget, he is going to be very interesting moving forward. I think he's going to be one to watch over the coming weeks because I think he is going to be caught in the crossfire when this all comes out, and it's going to affect him a lot moving forward because actually, deep down, yeah, he does the whole tough kid, and he needs to learn boundaries, and he needs to do this, and he needs to do that. But actually, this week sort of demonstrated that that's all very much a domino effect as to what is going on in his life. You know, he hasn't had that solid father figure there. And let's be honest, Ranveer is hardly someone who's about to teach kids about boundaries when it comes to women. So it all sort of makes sense, doesn't it? And if that's been the one kind of key figure in his life, what we don't know is about his mother. We don't know who his mum is. I don't think, do we?
I don't think it's even been mentioned particularly, or what happened, whether she left, or you know.
We don't know. So that's an interesting thing still to come. Hopefully, at some point, we'll find out about that. But so there's all that going on. There's all that excitement. Oh, and I also quite like Suki's relationship with him as well. That seems to be quite like a nice little
with Ravi.
With Nugget.
Nugget. Because she kind of stands to the side, doesn't she, and kind of goes, "Oh, Nugget." Well, I think Suki's always had that kind of maternal instinct. You know, she does have that for her own children, and that's why, you know, they've kind of almost grown up to resent her because she has such a tight hold of wanting the best for them.
Yeah,
exactly.
But not amazingly affectionate, though, is she? That's the thing about Suki's parenting.
She's always felt like that's what she's had to do because she's always been almost a mother and a father to them because that she's had to kind of, you know, be both sides for them.
Because Daddy Panesar wasn't there until
but we must also say that Ravi and Nina are also trying to kind of put a smokescreen up by getting Suki savvy, and be more around her family because they seem encouraged by the thought that if she's back with her family, she might start to forget about, you know, the whole Ranveer situation.
The fact that she thinks she killed someone. Her family is strong enough and gifted enough to make her forget that she thinks she committed murder. Yeah. But so there's all that going on. All sorts of loveliness going on there. But if that's not enough, Alex, which in some ways it perfectly well is, but if that wasn't enough, we also got another twist this week, which, to be fair, was less of a twist to us than the Nina reveal because we kind of worked this out quite quickly, I think. Yeah. But it doesn't matter because it was still a great moment because Daddy Panesar has officially arrived. We met Daddy Panesar, Nish, for the first time this week. And Ravi is his son, as we suspected. Now then. The interesting thing here is that kind of Ravi visited him in prison and instantly started slacking off Kheerat, who we believe, as far as we are aware, is Nish's son. But Nish didn't seem that keen on Kheerat, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that surprised me actually, because as soon as Ravi started saying like, oh, and he's kind of lording it around, kind of you know, putting his command on saying that I'm still the head of the family. So Ravi must be older than Kheerat then, I take it.
I would have thought so. I'm not sure.
To make
they look like similar ages, so nothing too crazy. But
imagine they're twins.
Well, no, because that would suggest that Suki is his mother.
Well, no, that's true. Suki should. That's true.
Yeah,
yes,
so she's not Cat. She doesn't forget that twins are ripped out of her without because I was so high on medication, I had no idea.
Imagine it. But yeah, so yeah, it's really weird that he resents that. Daddy Panesar seems to resent the children that he had with Suki, and it seems to be
starting to wonder. However, there's a few mentions of Jags this week. I think it's going to be revealed at some point that either Daddy Panesar or Ravi were the one that killed Jags.
Oh,
I do.
You opening that box?
I just think that they were both in prison at the same time as Jags for a start. Now I know we've established there must be a million prisons around Walford because otherwise there will be a whole spin-off of anybody that's ever been sent to prison in Walford. But they would have been in the same prison surely at the same time. I think will be the sort of understanding because Ravi and Nish were presumably in the same prison, and yet
they might have been on different wings though. Don't forget,
maybe
because you have different, you know.
Yes,
so.
I mean I've never been to prison. I don't know.
No,
you have. I know.
I've watched Bad Girls.
I watched Bad Girls. We know our stuff.
I know.
But I think I've got a suspicion that Ravi or Nish might be responsible for Jags' death because Nish doesn't seem that paternal in a lot of ways. He's quite happy for Kheerat to sort of, and I quote, know his place. So, and there's all sorts of madness going on with Daddy Panesar at the moment. Like, there's a lot we don't know about him, and Suki's clearly scared of him. So he already is giving off Archie vibes, as you hoped a few weeks back. But I want this guy to make Archie look like Barney the dinosaur. All right, I want him to be evil.
Same. He's lovely as well. I mean, I'm sorry when I say he's lovely. He's obviously very good to look at.
Lovely,
but
bloke.
what I mean,
really nice and friendly.
But from the first scene, from the only scene we saw of Daddy Panesar this week, like I instantly he embodied the character that you kind of in your mind thought what Daddy Panesar would be.
Yeah, exactly, perfect. Yeah, exactly how I pictured him.
It was quite nice to see that. It was quite exciting to see that. Yeah. Oh yeah, very good indeed. So as we mentioned halfway through this, Kheerat started to notice that there was something happening between Suki and Ravi, and perhaps there's a secret related to Ranveer, and we'll be talking about that next. So Stacey and Kheerat had a date planned. He's made a nice little picnic basket, very Yogi Bear of him, and it had champagne in it and all kinds of
lucky Stacey,
Scotch eggs and egg and cress sandwiches, all the good stuff.
What's wrong with you people? I don't like Scotch eggs at all. Who in Christendom kind of looked at an egg and thought, you know what that needs? Breadcrumbs wrapped around it. Oh, look.
Well, need I remind everyone of who looked at a bacon sandwich and said, you know what that needs? Mayonnaise. But we've had this debate.
An egg, Alex. There's nothing crazy about it.
But listen, Stacey went out with Kheerat and they will get just about to hop on the train, and then Kheerat had a phone call and he had to take that phone call, leaving Stacey abandoned. Now, it's important because this is where Kheerat started getting information that from his investor in Dubai, that Ranveer hadn't turned up for any meetings. And so he's becoming more and more and more suspicious and kind of treading on the turf, which led to Nina and Ravi having to kind of like expand their plan and try to make Suki and direct Kheerat out in different directions. I mean, do you think Kheerat is in a dangerous territory? We said about Eve just now. Do you reckon Kheerat is in a dangerous territory as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the fact that even Daddy Panesar doesn't seem that keen on him, for what reason we will discover. But Kheerat's in danger because obviously Ravi hates him. Ravi is killed. So if someone who has killed in EastEnders doesn't like you, that automatically kind of puts you in the danger territory, I would think. So we'll see. I mean, everything that's kind of going on in Mumbai, James Bay, which is it?
All three. All three. I think it's Dubai, isn't it? It's Dubai.
Let's go for Dubai.
Dubai's where the money is, isn't it? I think.
Well,
no offense to anyone from Mumbai. I apologize, but Dubai is where like the glass skyscrapers and the giant. Have you seen I was watching Discovery or some kind of one of those channels, and in Dubai they've built a tank that goes like 8 miles deep of water, and it's the most deepest man-made diver's tank ever made. Nothing to do with this, but maybe that's where Ranveer is buried.
It proves that it's Dubai, clearly. Because if you've got an 8-foot tank, then you must be rich. Yes. So I mean,
8 miles.
8 miles. So yeah, I mean, the fact that Kheerat is getting no, it's crap. Really, it's more like a puddle.
It's like a paddling pool for divers.
Yeah, it's not much really, is it? I've never been very good at metrics. So the fact that he is getting these calls from Dubai, it's suggesting that there is a communication there, because now Ranveer is starting to be noticed of not being there, which is where things are still going to start to go wrong for Ravi and Nina as more kind of questions start getting asked. Suki's now going to get more stressed, which is going to put more pressure on her, so she's more likely to reveal something to somebody. The fact that she has already revealed a little bit of what's gone on to Eve suggests that she's going to be pretty malleable going forward as to getting a few more details out. Eve's going to start asking questions, so people are in danger soon, I think. Yeah, as the pressure rises, the danger rises, Alex. That's what happens.
That's it. Again, that sounds like a tagline for a game show. You should do taglines.
I should present a game show. I should present a game show. I'm not wasted here. I should present a game show on BBC One. I'm ready if you want me, guys.
We could do The Wall. Now Danny Dye's not doing it anymore.
Drop them.
They're on the wall. Come on, Angela, rip and
give us a question. My darling.
Oh, darling. Quickly going off the story with the Panesars before we go back in a moment, but we should also mention that Stacey tried to set up a meal between Jean and Harvey this week. And Jean seemed genuinely quite upset and disappointed with Stacey having planned this.
Having meddled herself in everything else that was going on for the rest of the week. So it's slightly hypocritical, Jean, I thought. Bless her, but...
But do you think Jane feels a bit like let down that she wants to show she's got this independence, and Stacey's still not, and Stacey's still not kind of letting her off the lead just yet. Not to say Jane's a dog, but you know what I mean. She's kind of not been trusted just yet to kind of like roam free.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I think the thing is, Jean is sort of, like you say, she wants to kind of do this at her own pace. Otherwise, her and Harvey have had that conversation. You know, both of them are sort of agreed, but I'm not ready yet. I have just come out of hospital. I had a very kind of bad episode. I need time to sort of recover. I need like peace and quiet around me. Why she moved back to Albert Square in that case, God only knows. Because it's hardly a rehab centre. What Albert Square is it for any sort of mental health? Really, it's quite stressful.
Yeah. But it's a caravan park with Mo. That's another danger, really, isn't it? You know?
Sweats, clothes hanging off the line. You know, Jean and Harvey will sort of do their thing as they go along. And they will be together again by the end of the year per se. It won't be that long, but it's nice. I like Jean and Harvey, and I think they've got quite a sweet little relationship. And Harvey's clearly prepared to wait, which is nice as well. Yeah. Charlie will be under that. Charlie, see, I said it subconsciously. Then the new Charlie will be in the Slater kind of kitchen, watching all these mad women going around, and just trying to read his paper before we know it. So I can't wait because I like Harvey.
Swinging then quickly right back to the Panesar story just to kind of cap it off. That's right, lovely. If you only had long hair, it'd be a lovely Timotei advert. You need a waterfall behind you and suds everywhere. Show off your dimples. All three of them. Nina obviously is in it with Ravi. Do you think that when Ravi was trying to dispose of the body, Nina had some kind of had some help from Nina? She's a doctor. She knows exactly. She probably knows a few people who could incinerate bodies, which could then lead to what you know what I mean. Though, so do you think that you said that Ravi and Nina had always planned to do something with Ranveer? Do you think that Nina had been in on the plan immediately after Ravi had killed Ranveer?
Yeah, well, we don't know how long it took for Nina to find that out, do we?
That's it, yeah.
Because that whole thing with us was the fact that we were kind of like, why is Nina not reacting to this barely at all? I can't believe we didn't spot it, Alec, we're morons. The EastEnders are right. Some of the people, and we have some crew that listen to this podcast, I know that, and they will be very smug that we missed that. Very smug. Get that smug off your face, all right? We won't miss the next twist. You wait.
They'll be in the writer's room on Monday, and they'll be there. Rob and Alex, did you hear?
Walford Weekly, they know nothing. But who knows? But I think more might be revealed as time goes on, and I really cannot wait to find it because the Panesars are flying up in quality at the moment, and the fact that they're now sort of the big story of the square, I love it, and they're growing, and it's all going to be marvelous, and there's so much more to come. Let us know in the comment section below where you think the Panesar story is going from here. Are you happy to see Daddy Panesar? Let us know. Social media, comment section, tappity tap, do it.
We have another little story coming up now, and that is the relationship that is Amy and Denzel, because they finally kissed on the stairs. Denzel did that flourish after he kissed her.
It's like an Italian chef, wasn't it? Mwah!
Chef's kiss.
You're delissimo, Amy.
Just like he grabbed her face and went, like that.
Flourish, wasn't it?
Like an explosion of movement.
Flourish and panache. That's what
Do you think that's an answer as well? He's going to pirouette in his house.
Oh, you wait. That's our next Strictly contestant. Ready and waiting to go.
Give it time. Series 21.
Give it 5 years.
So much to discuss though with Jack was gushing over his daughter this week, saying how she's the best artist, she's the best writer in science. She made a Frankenstein's monster. She's done everything.
What is he based this on? What is he based on? He's spent the last 3 years absolutely convinced that she's a cocaine addict and slowly turning into a mother.
Well, this new Amy, new face, new attitude.
He's a man of contradictions is Jack Branning, I tell you.
Jack has upset a few people along the way. He upset Howie by kind of insinuating that Denzel's not good enough for his daughter. And he upset Martin because Martin was the one who spotted them kind of like holding hands and being, being quite loved up with one another. And so Martin relished the idea of telling Jack about it. I mean, for me, this is just explosions of hello pregnancy storyline. I've been saying this since the beginning.
To be fair, yes.
They recast they recast Amy as an 18-year-old actress.
Yeah,
and you need an older actress to do a much, but maybe a bit more of a serious story, you know. And I just feel like there's a baby coming. There's a baby on the way.
Well, I mean, the assumption is because obviously Jack came round to fix Kim's sink because Kim's sink was broken. And all of a sudden, Denzel and Amy appear from upstairs. Now, he wasn't aware that they were there. Now, they both gave kind of stories of, we're just doing homework. You're just helping me choose an outfit, which my first question would have been, well, don't you have to be naked to do that? To be changing clothes? Duh. But then, so Jack seemed to buy that reluctantly. But then, obviously, like you say, we go to the stairs, and they had their kiss. And the general sort of consent... The vibe I got from it was that they had, because Amy said good cover, so which presumably means that they have slept together. You would think that seems to be the suggestion of it. I think that's what they were. Yes,
I didn't go that far because Amy seemed to be more on board of them being together. So did Denzel just think this was like a casual hookup?
Well, they were because they were walking down the street holding hands at one point, weren't they?
Yeah, but Denzel still didn't seem very sure until the kiss that they were a relationship.
Oh, you felt that was their first thought. I thought that was their first. Oh, maybe
their first
you might
contact,
be right.
as it were.
Maybe contact,
like spaceship.
His first docking.
Yes. The first time Denzel docked Amy.
Thunderbirds are go. So, yes, good. So yes. So I mean, I think. Well, fair enough. Then I think that's a fairly good point. But the fact that she said good cover implied to me that something else was going on while they were upstairs. I think they weren't looking at outfits. So if they haven't done it then, I think they're definitely going to do it like by next week because teenagers, they can't get enough of each other. They're insatiable.
They can't. I mean, they
especially
are.
when you live in Walford.
Exactly, and they are teenagers. To be fair,
hormones flying around like the red arrows.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jack, I feel like this annoys me a little bit because Jack is kind of going to be right in the sense that he was right not to kind of trust Amy and Denzel to be adult enough to like maybe not take it to the next step if this is indeed the pregnancy storyline. And I kind of get that Jack would be worried. It happened to his sister. Don't forget, it happened when
yes.
Forgotten her name now. That's completely escaped me.
Susie.
Not Susie. No, that's his daughter. No, his sister.
Penny was his
Carol.
Carol. Oh, Carol. Yes. Don't forget Carol. We are fans, honest. Walford Weekly.
Yeah. It's happened in the family before. It's happened to Carol when she had Bianca. It happened to Sonia.
Yes.
His niece.
It happened to Sonia, yeah.
And so he knows that it can happen. The Jackson genes, can be quite rampant, let's just say.
The Jackson genes come down quite quickly, don't they?
Yes, the Branning genes, I should say, before I get corrected. You don't need to correct me. I know it's the Brannings. Don't worry.
He knows what he's doing. He's an expert.
Even though I forgot Carol's name, it's fine. So I mean, there's been a lot of criticism saying that this is a still, this is an idea that's already been done on Emmerdale. I mean, it's not really a still, is it? It's like I've already mentioned 2 times it's been done already with Sonia.
And then if you're going to accuse EastEnders of nicking it off Emmerdale, then you're going to accuse Emmerdale of nicking it off Corrie. Because Corrie did the whole Sarah Platt thing when she was 13, I think it was. So what, are you implying that every single storyline has been nicked from elsewhere? You're going to have some crossovers at some point. And it's all about how you do it. It's all about how you do it, isn't it?
Exactly.
And what we've got at the moment here is actually kind of, the way that they've built Denzel and Amy up has been dealt with really well. I think it's kind of been a slow burner, and you can kind of see, they've done the whole sort of boy pulling hair in the playground sort of relationship between them, and sort of establishing the fact that they fancy each other. Lily, I think, fancied Denzel as well at one point, so I'm wondering when that's going to sort of rear its head again, because I felt that Lily was.
Yeah, because Nugget's probably going to feel like he's kind of been an outsider with this. I know they're friends with Tommy as well, but Tommy's not kind of
he's younger than them, though, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Nugget's going to kind of be like pushed out as well. But then there's potential there then for Nugget to get together, perhaps with Lily.
Who knows?
There's that as well.
These kids, you can't keep a track of them half the time.
No.
So old. Honestly,
I just want to not get in debt. That's all I want. Young kids get in debt.
Debt and incest. That's all we want from EastEnders.
That's all I want. That's all I ask for, EastEnders. Debt and incest. You heard it here first.
And a two-hander.
So, and a two-hander, but with the right 2 hands, I think we should also do as a caveat. Well,
Yeah,
it's my two characters, I should say.
Yeah, indeed. So, I think it is what it is at the moment. I think that, and I don't mean that negatively, as that phrase has often been connotated. But I like it. Jack, I think, is going to be interesting to sort of see. I'm glad Jack's getting something to do, to be honest, because Jack's had nothing to do for about 3-4 years at this stage. So I'm glad that Jack's kind of found himself in the midst of some sort of storyline. I liked Denise's attitude throughout the whole thing, actually, because
I was about to say that to
you.
I
liked that because not so much. She said that she's raised 2 teenage girls, so she kind of knows what she's talking about, which is completely right. Now, to be fair, well, Libby not so much, because I don't think Libby really was ever really that much of a problem for Denise, was she? In a lot of
no, I was going to say Libby Chelsea kind of looked after herself.
Yeah, Chelsea on the other hand, cocaine. The lot. So it seems that Jack and Denise could actually have quite a lot of conversations about kind of troublesome teenage girls, because Denise went through it with Chelsea in a lot of ways, and so I look forward to that. And actually, what that also does is sort of cement Denise and Jack to me, because that's all I ever want from relationships on the Square Isles. It's like I always say, relationships should be like a character within themselves. What sort of relationship are we looking at here? If you look at Den and Angie, that was a troublesome, toxic relationship. Like you have a toxic, troublesome character. So to have the conversation between Jack and Denise cements them as a decent couple, and they've got stuff in common. So I just want to see more of that, because Jack and Denise, we didn't even bother see them getting married, for God's sake. That's how much investment has been put into them. So yes, I know before you say it, different era. Don't even just swallow your words, Alex. I know what you're going to say. So let us know in the comment section below. Do you think we're right? Is Amy going to be pregnant soon? Comment section below, people. Let us know what you think.
Finally, then, we have to talk about Billy and Freddie's relationship, because Freddie had quite the revelation this week. And when he found out that Billy wasn't his father, however, not the circumstances of how he's not his son, Freddie went on a bit of a rampage on his little scooter around the square, whilst music played around him mysteriously as if from nowhere.
Now, Clenners, behave yourself. All right.
This is your first warning, Clenners.
Just calm it. All right, Clenners. Stop it.
I mean, it's it's quite a sad thing for Freddie to hear, but as we say, he's not.
That was sad for us to hear.
Oh, well, tell me about it. And he didn't have everything either. He's not got all the information just yet.
No.
But it wasn't really Phil's place to tell him. But I feel like
no,
Phil
of course it wasn't.
He got a bit wound up by Freddie, didn't he? By the whole solicitor and finding Billy some kind of legal aid of some sort.
Right, can you explain this to me, Alex? Because I have to be honest, it's kind of I'm getting a bit confused with all this legal aid stuff. Why can't Richie represent him? Why is Phil so against Richie representing him? I'm sort of, because Richie has never had any issues with representing anybody before. Normally when anybody that's associated with Phil is getting kind of tagged down by the police, Richie's there like a shot. She'll swim from a beaver to be there if she's needed. So I was kind of a bit confused as to why Richie can't actually do it this time. She said something a few weeks back about she gave some reason which didn't sound that convincing, and now Phil seems to be kind of annoyed about Billy getting any legal representation whatsoever. So I'm a bit confused.
Well, I mean, I think Phil is angry by the insinuation that he's not contributing toward Billy's legal aid, and so Billy's getting free legal that you're required to get by law and blah blah blah, and so the solicitor isn't necessarily very good, but at the same time Phil's then there kind of complaining to Kat that he can't help Billy out because he's not getting the information on Keeble, because his whole premise of all this seems to be that he thinks that if he can find enough dirt on Keeble, that it will stop Keeble's case going forward, because that's what happens with murder cases. You find dirt out about police officers, they drop the case. It's what you do. It's what you do.
All the time.
But I don't really get it. I don't get it either. I don't see why at least someone within the whole agent, maybe there's a partner for Richie or something. I don't know. There must be someone Richie knows.
Well, no, because this is a guy called Jimmy, who apparently is an old face of EastEnders, like from the 90s. So, do you know who this Jimmy is? Because apparently we've seen him before. I've been informed.
His face may ring a bell.
His face may ring a bell. If he's played by the same bloke, we don't know. But the other side of the thing is, though, Freddie was trying to kind of raise money up and to kind of find some legal representation. He asked Phil for some money. Phil said, well, I haven't got any money whatsoever.
Again, I don't want to help Billy.
I don't want to help Billy, exactly. And then Ben turned around and was like, he's not got hair, he's not got charm, but what he has got is cash. And then sorted it out himself, presumably with a few sort of phone calls, which was how Billy has now got this bloke called Jimmy. So I don't understand Phil's, and like you say, Phil was then kind of upset that he couldn't do anything. So I'm confused. I'll be honest, I'm sort of missing some vital ingredients to this story that aren't making sense to me at the moment. I don't know.
It's really weird because I know that the whole reveal happened on Thursday by Phil to Freddie.
Yeah,
but it felt like it kind of jumped, like we missed a step somewhere from that to then Freddie skating around the square off his head, screaming, going, "Oh, man!" and whatever around the square. But also at the top of the week, we saw Freddie being quite zen. Like he was sat at the kitchen table listening to sparrows, having a warm cup of tea. Did you know his pinky was in there as well?
Yeah,
he's got the etiquette.
We've all listened to sparrows. I prefer albatross myself, but you know, it's
for the band.
Yeah.
But then he kind of unravelled when he heard this news. But I feel like, I think we've kind of said or alluded to, it's missing something. It's missing something,
and
that thing that's missing is Mo. Little Mo.
Yeah.
Little Mo needs to be there for this to almost feel complete as a story.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, Little Mo it feels like Little Mo needs to be there for the next segment, which will be Freddie finding out exactly who his father is and how his father is. You know, so the thing is, obviously, you can't blame the show if the actress doesn't want to. If Casey Ainsworth doesn't want to come back, then you can't blame the show for that. And you know, it goes a little bit back to when we were talking about the Sonia and Rocky story and saying how it was weird that Carol wasn't there for any of the involvement. And you have to kind of ask, well, if the actress doesn't want to come back, does that mean you just can't do the story, or do you try and work around the absence of an actor? You know, and you could use that argument for any kind of funeral or wedding where the actor just isn't available, doesn't want to come back, and the character isn't there. It feels weird without them, but you kind of just got to kind of work with what you've got. With this, however, it feels like Little Mo is at some point a vital component to this story. You know, because it happened to her. She's clearly not told Freddie the full truth, understandably, kind of because of what happened to her, and she doesn't want her son to be kind of subjected to that. And unfortunately, with a lie like this, the longer it goes on, the worse the outcome is when it eventually comes out. And again, that means that surely she has to be there for that even if it's just a Skype call. You know, they can do that now. They've done it with Shaw.
They love doing them, don't they?
Well,
they're doing a lot of them now. But it's a good way of getting the character in, isn't it?
It's a very easy way of getting an old character back. You know, Corrie did it with a character that's not been seen for years and years for one scene, a few like last year or something. So it's possible. And I would take it if it was just going to be a Skype thing. If, you know, the actress, if Casey Ainsworth isn't available or doesn't want to come back and do like a load of stuff, but it feels like at some point she needs to be present for some of this storyline. Otherwise, how is it going to work in terms of Freddie's reaction? Because if Freddie finds this out, his first reaction surely would be to go straight to his mum and go, "Do you want to start telling me the truth now, then, please? What exactly has happened to you and who you wanted to beat up?"
Exactly.
You know, which would be, I think, Freddie's reaction. If he finds out that his dad is a rapist, he would want to go and find his dad or something like that, you know? So I don't know.
Do you think
Graham return at some point? I don't know.
Well, this is why I'm wondering, do you think Freddie will try to then, once he hears the news, will then try to search for his real dad? And how supportive would Billy be with that? Because do you think Billy's kind of accepting him as part of the family, isn't he? Because we're seeing this nice side of Billy. They kind of
you know, the Slaters have taken him under their wing completely. You know, he tends to he's getting on with all the Slaters when he's not being a drunken arse. You know, everyone likes him. Everyone's getting on with him. He's got a great relationship with Bobby, which I'm really enjoying, to be fair. I like his thing in the fish and chip shop and
deep fried bananas, deep fried everything.
The queue going around the corner shop as though Freddie had invented the deep fat fryer. You know, it's it's fine.
Nothing new, really. We had in Scotland for years deep fried Mars bars.
Exactly. You deep fry anything. You deep fry anything in
cuisine.
Your arteries made out of batter in Scotland. I don't understand how any.
I wish it were. I'd eat my own arteries then.
I don't know what you were going to say there. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to have to be a sort of wait and see thing with this story. Obviously, there's a lot more to come with it. Freddie is here. He's there. He's doing his thing. Fine. But there is components of a storyline that are missing at the moment, and whether we get them or not remains to be seen. But it is going to feel like this is an element of the story that really can't be written around. So, but then you would have known that when you brought Freddie in, because we all know Freddie's story. So you would have known that would need to be addressed pretty damn sharpish.
An element that needs to be brought in. I mean, this isn't to say that Mo isn't coming in. This isn't that, you know, we don't know. This could be.
No, we don't know.
You know, we've asked for more kind of like surprises, more kind of like, you know, secrets that we don't know from like them revealing it in spoilers and stuff and the other. They still like to kind of like give information out. But we have had the odd shock here. We've had Sean. That was a big surprise.
Yeah, that was great. Keeble was a surprise when she came back. All the elements of the Panesar story this week were surprises. They weren't spoiled for anybody. So I don't know. We may well see. We're in an era, I think, where if it's possible that it'll happen, because we've got a team at the moment who are huge fans of the show, and that's clear to see on screen. They understand the history, otherwise Freddie wouldn't even have been brought back. You know what I mean? I feel like we've come out of a couple of years where Freddie wouldn't know who Freddie was. So it's. I think wait and see at the moment. At the moment, it feels like we know what we need to see. Whether we get it or not remains to be seen.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think that's us summed up. Not us. The show summed up for the week.
Goodbye.
Yeah. So that was us. As Rob always says, if you have any other additional comments, anything you'd like to talk to us about, just comment below or get us in touch with our socials. All the details will be at the end of the show. Rob does it with much more coherence. But now here's the bit. I feel like this is quite a big topic to talk about as well. Some news came out last week about the character leaving the show after 18 months. And we're going to talk about that now and your comments and emails on I Ain't One to Gossip.
And you know me, I ain't one to gossip.
I am not happy. I am not a happy bunny. I'm not a happy boy, Alex. So basically, the news was revealed this week that Janine Butcher is set to make an explosive exit from EastEnders at the end of the year, with Charlie Brookes bowing out of the role after 18 months. Now, as I've made it quite clear over the past few months, over the past 18 months, really, Janine is my favourite character of all time. I've been waiting for years for her to come back, and now she's back. She's only done an 18-month stint. I am gutted that she's leaving. Now, apparently, Charlie Brookes has been quoted as saying that she was only ever supposed to come back for a year, and Chris Clenshaw's story persuaded her to stay on for the extra few months. Now, my first question for that is, what the hell was that first year supposed to be? Because her first year was her coming back, having a sort of half-hearted kind of custody battle with Kat over Scarlet, who she hasn't really paid that much attention to since. The madness with Liam and Jay and the Carlot stuff.
Oh God, I've put that at the back of my mind. I completely forgot about that.
But this is the point. All of this happened in her first year, and then obviously she kind of got with Mick at the end of it, and then we're leading in, and then the Linda and Janine feud just sort of dovetailed from that. But my question would be, like, what the hell was the story supposed to be for the 1 year? What were you planning, John Sen? So, I mean, I'm delighted that she's staying to sort of give herself a good exit. And the fact is, presumably this means that Mick and Janine are sort of leaving at the end of this story, which means it's going to be big. Christmas Day is going to be huge, and they're both leaving. So that's exciting. But Charlie Brookes is also quoted as saying, as usual with Janine, she should never outstay her welcome. Now, I would take that if it wasn't for the fact that this has been by a million miles, Janine's shortest ever stint. The first time she was in it, she was there for 5 years. Then she left and came back for 6 years. And then she's left after about 7 years, is it? And has come back for this 18-month stint. Now, I'm not going to lie. I am. It sounds really selfish and churlish. I'm gutted and annoyed at Charlie Brookes for leaving. That's not her fault. That's just me being a massive fan of EastEnders and knowing that my favourite character was around, and now she's leaving after this one story. Because I was really excited to sort of see Janine after this. Sort of see, because one of my favourite things to do with Janine after it's madness that she'd done. Think back to when she stabbed herself for Stacey's exit. One of my favourite things to do is watch Janine sort of sift through the wreckage of her own behaviour and sort of deal with the aftermath of her own actions. And we're not really going to get that this time because she's apparently off after this. So, like I say, it leads us to an exciting possibility as to how she's going to leave. It's going to be big. It's going to be exciting. Is she going to be arrested? Is Mick going to die? Is Janine going to kill her second Michael? There's lots of options out there. Also, lots of questions. We know that Ricky's returning, so presumably that's all going to be linked with there. My guess is that Scarlet's going to go off with Ricky, and that's going to kind of be the end of the whole story altogether. What are your thoughts? I mean, are you as gutted as I am? Are you disappointed?
I mean, I think her return was never.
Fall out here. We're going to fall out here.
Her return was never as big as I think that everyone expected it to be. I do. You're saying that she was introduced in those stories that she had. It did feel like a last-ditch attempt by John Sen to kind of like brings some kind of
Well,
notoriety to him.
If you remember, that was announced the same. Janine's return was announced, kind of leaked the same week. I think the day after Kush died, wasn't it? And therefore was furious.
Oh
about
yes,
that.
no, that's the other thing. John, the Janine's news wasn't meant to come out early. Well, allegedly, it was not meant to come out.
We don't know.
Straight, yeah. Well, I think there's a strong assumption though that it wasn't meant to come out quite as, and because of the upset of them, killing off Kush, which again was such a mistake, but still, they then announced that Janine was coming, and like I say, I think it was a kind of like a last ditch kind of like, oh look, I can do a show. Look, there's Janine coming, and like, well, you kind of summed up. Well, you kind of summed up, but you summed up like her first year was just. And it wasn't until Chris came along and kind of then gave her this attachment to the Carters and Mick and Linda. And let's be honest, there's been some good moments with her since that's kind of happened.
I think she's cooking on gas at the moment. I think the past 3 months or so since the Linda and Janine feud has really sort of kicked into gear with the car crash and everything that's going on like that, and and Janine sort of framing Linda. That's been the Janine that we've come to expect and know and love. And Charlie Brookes has been great in those scenes. I just think it's so disappointing that we're not getting more, because if you think about it, there was so much more for Janine to do. The fact that her and Stacey have shared like 2 scenes, 2 really kind of ineffectual scenes. The history that those 2 have, and they've barely come across each other. It's such a shame. Sorry, I was just going to ask.
Go on. No. I was just going to say, do you also think that because there's no one to take Janine into account, as in to kind of pull her up when she's done something wrong, there was always that kind of like we talked about before, the Pat kind of character who was able to kind of like, and we thought that when Ricky was going to be introduced, perhaps Ricky would be that character, be the one who kind of says to Janine, hey, what you're doing is wrong, and kind of Janine kind of like fighting against them all the time. Do you think because Janine never had that kind of not made her as impactful as she could have been?
I think the thing is, because Janine was kind of thrust quite early on into sort of very particular small groups, she wasn't really able to kind of spread her wings of chaos around the square like she normally would. But what it's also meant is that she hasn't been allowed to sort of integrate herself into other groups to give her that sense of realism that Janine would be all right to stay around. There were some people that liked her. Kim and Janine, for example. That's Janice. That's a thing. And she had friends. She's had friends on the square before, and she's not really been able to do that this time around. But it's apparently because it's been such a condensed period with such a kind of single-minded story and line since Clemens has came along and given her this hopefully great exit that she's going to get with Mick. And the Linda and Janine feud has been a lot of fun to watch.
It's been good.
And it's been a good time. My only now main concern is, we're in an era where soaps are sort of not as huge and massive as they used to be. I'm not trying to be morbid about this, but is this probably the last time we're ever going to see Janine? Is my other kind of slight, bottom lip out sort of moment.
I know. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It's been a long gap between her last and to this, hasn't it? But without sounding like Janine is worthless, because she's by no means worthless as a character.
I wouldn't dare say that to my face.
and it's not what I think either. But do you think that perhaps where these new characters, the Panesars, are being introduced, Freddie's being introduced, like this new story, this new kind of a new generation for the soap, which we've kind of both agreed that the soap has needed. Perhaps, yes, kind of keep one foot in the past, but also keep your eyes set for the future. Do you think that perhaps maybe it's not such a bad... it wasn't quite the time or the place for Janine right yet?
No, I don't think that, because what I think with Janine is, when she's handled correctly... The thing is with Janine, with a character like Janine, and I'm talking about her as a sort of entity here, but Janine is the sort of character that needs to be handled quite carefully, because you can veer off into sort of mad and wonderful directions, but at the same time you need that human level. Now, since she has been with Mick, we've had glimpses of that human level, because we as EastEnders fans know Janine well enough to know why she's with Mick. Okay, we understand the Frank connection. We understand this woman who really all she wants in life is, her main motive is love. All right, and she will do anything to achieve that. We know that about Janine. Okay. Which means that is ready for the taking and ready for picking. And Janine is adaptable because of the type of character she is. You can insert a character like Janine into any story, and well, not any story, but you can insert her into any sort of era, and she is adaptable enough to be able to work in that era. Because remember, Janine came out of one era, left for a few years, then came back into another era. You know, soaps come through different sort of genres and eras as time goes on, and she has worked in this era. You know, she works as a character that we love to watch, and we love to see her do her thing. And she can come back and do that again. There are still characters on the square that know her and that she has history with, and she's the sort of person that you can come. You know, this is the woman who, you know, when she returned once, we discovered her getting a false wedding to a Jewish man. You know, the last, which I still say to this day. I know the Doctor stuff got some criticism, but it's no less mad than that. You know, in fact, if anything, the Jewish thing is even madder than the whole false Doctor thing. I will die on that hill. But you know, I mean, in summary, I'm gutted. I'm annoyed. I'm not speaking to Charlie Brookes because how dare she have a career? You know, and I mean, I understand it. You know, of course, Charlie Brookes is the. I never thought that Janine was going to be around until the end of time, but I'm gutted that it's only for 18 months.
You thought it'd be a little bit more.
I really am kind of devastated, to be honest, and I need some time to deal with this, and I won't be taking questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Well, will you take some comments at least? We've had a few comments on our Twitter, our Instagram, and our TikTok. We got a few comments on our TikTok as well.
You love
all
that
of those
TikTok.
at Walford Weekly. Oh yeah, I'm on there. My big face floats around. It's great. So at Orville Lloyd on Twitter said, "I'm not surprised EastEnders are doing a lot of recycling of old characters to boost ratings. The new producer is trying to recreate the old success. The problem is that Chris Clenchall needs to focus on casting in their 20s and 30s, and EastEnders needs a younger audience to grow the soap." So he's saying perhaps bring, like what Freddie is, kind of bring back a younger, older, characters.
Okay, I get what they're saying there. The issue is with that is that you need to not alienate the other audience that have been there from the start, or audience that are like us, who are rallying for Sanjay, or something like that.
I love Sanjay.
I know
you say
Sanjay
that,
Geeta.
but Ben and I were talking about Sanjay and Geeta return only a couple of days ago.
It must be crazy to live in your house. What a fun
madhouse here!
What fun and japes you must have.
we reckon they could slide them in. At Matt Official 92 on Twitter has said, "This current return hasn't been the best. I feel like putting her and Mick together was just another way to drag on the marriage problems between a couple that were created originally never to split. I do wonder if a secret exit is planned for Linda so her and Mick can go together." So we're talking about, would Linda be going with Janine?
I mean,
would Linda be killed by Janine?
I doubt it.
Hang on.
The thing is, I doubt it because I think we're already losing Mick and Janine. Okay, with Danny Dyer, Charlie Brookes, and Kelly Bright, that's a lot of good talent to lose.
It is a lot to take.
I don't think that's I think that I imagine that even if Kelly Bright wanted to leave, she's been tied into a chair in the green room and told that she's not allowed to leave for another 2 years at least.
I mean, that's a family, though, isn't it? If you think about it, if you were to get rid of Janine, Mick, Linda, potentially Shirley, I'm not saying that's what's happening. That's 4 characters. That's a family that could be reintroduced.
It's the equivalent of a unit, isn't it? So it's a right unit. So I think Linda will be. But this is the other thing. I was kind of excited about the prospect of once Mick had gone to sort of see the aftermath of Janine and Linda, because they would still be both there together.
Yes,
we're not getting that now. So where does Linda? That's kind of removed a possibility of what Linda could do afterwards. So where does Linda go from here? I don't know.
Gilbert Pocket with 2 T's said
Fabulous
on TikTok, this news should be devastating, but she's been really underused since her return with the cringe relationship with Mick that I just don't buy at all. I mean, I think Mick's story is the strongest part of Janine's return, I have to be honest.
It is, but then I also think with the Mick and Janine story, remember when they first started and we were saying things like, their kissing scenes were awkward and all of that kind of thing. What I have always thought about the Mick and Janine story from the very beginning, and still do in all honesty, is the fact that I don't think we're supposed to think that they work together. Because it's supposed to be absolutely abhorrent to us that Linda and Mick should ever break up and Linda and Mick aren't meant to be together, or that they should veer off into different directions. So I've always felt there's a sense of deliberateness about that. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change right up until the end, I think.
Okay. One final Twitter comment, and then we've got an email also relating to Janine. Janine fever we have.
Correspondence we've had this week.
Haven't we just? At Katie_Pepper has written, sad she's going because there's nobody quite like Janine, but can't help but feel disappointed that the only real storyline she got was begging after Mick. The Janine we know and love would never be so tragic. Even the blackmails of Jada and Jay were weak, but at least we got Scarlet. I mean, is Scarlet staying, do you think? You said that perhaps...
I think she's probably going to offer Rick. I think she's going to go. Well, I mean, where would she go? If once Janine's gone, where does she go? She either goes with Janine,
Cat.
but I didn't. Who?
Cat. What, Scarlet could go with Cat.
I thought a cat. I thought you said Pat. I was kind of like,
no,
Pat. And a Ouija board storyline coming our way. Have we had it? Pat's alive. What a surprise! What a twist.
She did come back for
Yes, as a ghost. I feel like Scarlet is probably going to go as well. I think that's probably why Ricky is coming back, or one of the components as to why Ricky is returning. Because the only other scenario was that she would kind of move in with Kat and the Slaters. That as well is a disappointment to me, because I'd said before that I do believe that the child of Janine Butcher should be one of the most fascinating kid characters ever. Because how, as a kid, do you deal with Janine being your mother and your lone parent? Like, what does that do to a kid, especially a kid like Scarlet, who's kind of very kind of young, impressionable, and kind of a bit fragile, but not really that streetwise. So I would love to have seen that play out, but it doesn't look like we're getting it yet.
Well, this is the email from Raymond. Hello, Ray. Thank you for your email.
Hi.
He's written, Dear Alex and Rob, weekly listener here. I thought of you two when Scarlet spotted the picture of Janine on Monday's episode. I think one of you said something about how Janine only works with family around her. Scarlet asking to talk to Linda afterwards reminded me of Pat. It would be so cool if Scarlet becomes a big enough character on the show to keep Janine in line the next time she comes back to Walford. I hope Scarlet doesn't have to go with Janine as well, and I hope only Janine goes. Yours, Ray. So again, do you think that, you know, if they were to return, if Janine and Scarlet were to return, Scarlet would be much older, 18, 19 perhaps then she could be that character that I long for, that's the one who's responsible for Janine's actions?
I mean, I've always said, I have to say, the characterization of Scarlet has been what I have wanted from Scarlet. If Janine was ever to return and Scarlet was to come with her, that's what it's like. I've said it before. It's like they pulled it out of my brain and put it on the screen. Scarlet was perfectly characterized because I wanted them to have this sort of Ab Fab, Adina, and Safi type role, and that's exactly what they've done. Now, Scarlet growing up is going to be a different kettle of fish altogether. Will they stick with that characterization if we ever see Scarlet again? Who knows? I would like to see somebody who, I think Scarlett's the type of person who would grow up to be somebody quite academic, somebody quite intelligent. So how would somebody like that again deal with their mother, who may be coming out of prison, who may be just on the run? Who knows? The thing is with Janine, there's a number of different options for her in how to leave because she's crazy like that. And Janine is going to have her back against the wall pretty soon, and that's when Janine's at her most kind of mad and dangerous. So that I am looking forward to. I just wish that it wasn't resulting in her exit.
That's true. I keep forgetting also that they mentioned in the early 90s that Frank had a secret son as well. He had a son with another woman, didn't he? So perhaps that could be something for the future return of Janine as well. I don't know. It could be. There is possibilities there, but like you say, it's a frightening prospect to think that if the soap should end, or if in the future of the soap, whether we will ever see Janine return.
Realistically, I think that it's. I'm not saying that EastEnders is on the verge of cancellation. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm talking about the soap genre as a whole. I think in the next 10 years, the soap landscape is going to look quite different. I suspect. Not based on anything. It's just the way that look at the way the past 5 years have gone. Even the past year alone, we've lost 2. In Neighbours and Holby City. So what is going to be the next casualty?
Casualty.
Yeah, maybe. Is EastEnders going to be in the same sort of? Is it going to be in the same form in 10 years' time? Is Janine is a time if the gaps between Janine, is there time for another Janine appearance? God, I hope so. I pray to all that's listened, the Walford gods, that this is not the last time we see Janine. Charlie Brookes, if you're listening to this, you've broken my heart. I will forgive you if you promise to come back one day. All right? So until then, please do get in touch by doing the following. You can contact us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast, on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications about our spoiler videos. And you can listen to us on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites. You can email us at robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. And I want Ben to have that little speech nailed by the way. That's what I expect.
I suspect I'll be the one doing that speech at the end.
Well, can you say it? I bet you read it. I bet you read it. So please do let me know, by the way, down below, Amsterdam tips. If any of you have ever been, give us some little info. Give us some places to go. I'm there for about 4 or 5 days. So let me know, please. I'd love
keep it clean. Keep it clean.
No, don't bother. Don't bother.
And when we see you again, Rob, we'll be changing the dots behind you as well, won't we?
Oh, we will. How exciting!
I mean, we're meant to do it next week, but we'll keep it for the following.
Tough. Yeah. My calendar, my dot.
Enough,
so until Alex and Ben will be back next week, I will be back in 2 weeks' time. So until then, it's goodbye from me
and a goodbye from myself. Have a lovely weekend. Take care. Bye.
Bye.